Why prostitution should be made legal. Sex work is one of the oldest professions known to man. Mentions of prostitutes are even in the Bible. For example, Mary Magdalene, Rahab, and Tamar, just to name a few. So why has society rejected sex work for so long? This is the oldest question about the oldest profession. My argument is that prostitution should be made legal, and sex workers should be offered the same rights and respect as any other worker in the average field. This would benefit women and society as a whole. The case for making it against the law to buy sex begins with the premise that it is exploitative and demeaning, according to Emily Bazelon in her article, Why is Prostitution Illegal? The argument is that legalizing prostitution would allow for more back alley violence and human trafficking, but I disagree with this conclusion on sex trafficking. Well, legalizing prostitution would make a sex worker healthier. As a waitress, you have to wash your hands and be up to date with all of your shots. These are certain regulations that we have to follow according to the Health and Labor Department and the World Health Organization. Well, if prostitution were legal, then these women and men would also have to be held accountable to the same rules and regulations that every other worker has to be accustomed to. So, why is it still illegal? Well, in the article, This is Why It's Time to Legalize Prostitution, Kathy Renzowitz states, the World Health Organization recommends that countries decriminalize sex work. The data is clearly in favor of legalizing sex work. Why has it not been done? Well, in places like Germany, New Zealand, and Greece, first world countries, like many other places in Europe where prostitution is legal and regulated, violence, sex work, and human trafficking have declined significantly. Since sex workers can report abuse and harassment, and the culprit can be held accountable, liable, and prosecuted, this is one of the points that has lessened the sex work and violence. Sex workers can also get checkups regularly and be up to date with their health, which is what we ultimately want, women to be healthy and protected. This brings me to my next point of violence against sex workers. It's no secret that sex workers suffer a more at-risk job. It's our duty to protect them. Violent people are more likely to victimize sex workers, self-assured that they won't be held accountable or convicted. In an article titled Feminist Argument on How Sex Work Can Benefit Women, Kelly J. Bell cites, prostitution needs to be regulated by the same occupational safety and health regulations offered to sex workers and other labor industries. This made the case to why the UN Human Rights Council published an article, a harmful article, on anti-trafficking measures which restricts sex workers but allows for more room with sex trafficking and pimps, ultimately. So women proposed another idea. One that doesn't mean the interdiction of clients, because it has not reduced trafficking or prostitution. Yet there has been a rise in sex workers' susceptibility to violence, damaged HIV results, and imposes on sex workers' rights. The inspection of the nefarious Johns, which are a term named for men who seek out prostitutes, in New York's past governor, Eliot Spitzer, a prime example of how expensive it can be to break a prostitution ring. And quote, in this case, they tapped 5,000 phone conversations, intercepted 6,000 emails, used surveillance and undercover tactics that are more appropriate for trapping terrorists than entrapping Johns, a well-known Harvard law professor, Alan Dershowitz, published in the Wall Street Journal. There are even police departments dedicated to this, dedicated to breaking prostitution rings, and this is a prime example on how expensive it can be. Prosecuting sex workers, efforts and resources that could be better used in other departments like homicide, anti-drug, or terrorism. In 2012, the estimated federal funding for the police department in charge of investigating prostitution cases were $3 million US. The average number for every other department is $2 million. This is a whole extra $1 million that could be better used. Sex work should be made legal. Sex workers offer the same rights and respect as the average worker because, once again, this is not them selling their bodies, it is them selling a service. It's a big difference also, and it's not demeaning when you are voluntarily do it. While I do understand that sex work can also be coerced onto women and men, sex workers should not be shamed by society nor prosecuted because it is genuinely a victimless crime when you aren't forced. America legalizes and administers various commerce that is morally contemptible, like gambling, pornography, and gigolos. While I would like to mention that pornography is essentially prostitution on air, and the reason it is not made illegal is because it is taxed. If we made prostitution legal, it would also be taxed. This too can be legalized in a safe and healthy manner. It is true, women can be coerced into prostitution. Once again, I'm not saying it's not, but if it were made legal, more women would ought to seek help from the police, from anybody else, and would not be such victims or more liable to becoming victims or abuse. We are not helping them by making prostitution illegal. We are helping their accusers and their abusers. We want women to feel that they are safe and protected by society, and we're not helping them by making sex work a crime. Remember, morality is objective.